What's going on, everybody? Good morning. We have made it to Wednesday, and I think now is a pretty good time to take a few big steps back and take a look at the state of the Seahawks roster. We've had a pretty tumultuous offseason. We've had some trades, we've had some signings, we've now had a draft, we've now had a few releases as of yesterday. So I want to take a look at the state of the overall Seattle Seahawks roster. So we're just going to be taking a look at what I imagine will be the 53-man roster as of right now, as well as a handful of guys on the bubble who I think will barely not make it, but they could if there's a slight variation to the way the offseason goes. And let's keep in mind that they can still sign players. There could be some surprises in the rookie minicamp or training camp or OTAs. So nothing set in stone yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw out a projection of what things may look like for the 2025 Seattle Seahawks. All right, so let's start at the top here. We got quarterback. Sam Darnold is the starter. Drew Lock is the backup. Jalen Milroe is your third stringer. And obviously, that's not to suggest that Drew Lock is more valuable to this team than Milroe, but I firmly believe that in the event of a Sam Darnold injury or Sam Darnold very poor performance, Drew Lock is the next man up because Milroe is a player who needs to be protected for at least this first year and quite possibly 2026 as well. But we'll get to 2026 when we get there. The point I'm trying to make is I believe that functionally Drew Lock is the backup during games, even if Milroe is obviously the more valuable piece. Running back, we've got Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Kenny McIntosh, and Damian Martinez. I do think that we should be able to carry 4 running backs. We typically have. You will probably see one of these running backs declared inactive on many game days because that's the way NFL rosters typically go. There is still some possibility of the Seahawks trading Ken Walker or Zach Charbonnet. I believe that I commented in a video briefly the other day about how Schneider had already indicated that the team was interested in doing some post-draft trading. I still have mixed feelings about trading Walker or Charbonnet, given the fact that I don't think you can get very much for either of them. But as of right now, that's how things shake out. We'll see what happens in a few weeks. And then, of course, your fullback is Robbie Outs, the rookie. And because this is the Kubiak offense, I did put a fullback on here, even though I understand the fullback will not be on the field an excessive amount of time. There will be some set of snaps that he gets. Okay, a wide receiver. We've got JSN and Cooper Kupp, your top 2 guys right now at wide receiver. Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Torrey Horton are your key backups. Horton may not be a key backup depending on his injury status. If the injury is still affecting him when the season starts, or if the injury prevents him from having a full off season, then he might be bumped back or even start the season on IR. We'll see. But as of right now, I think that he would be, if healthy, your number 4. And then you've got Jake Bobo and Ricky White III as your 5th and 6th wide receivers on the team. There is definitely some room for variance here. Jake Bobo is a guy who I've theorized may not make the team this year because he didn't really do that much last year. Ricky White, I think he'll make the team, but as a 7th round pick, nothing is guaranteed. He's going to actually have to do something to earn it. And I had a wide receiver guy on the bubble, Sims, the returner that we signed from, I believe he was Baltimore and Houston last year. So I would not be shocked if Sims makes it over Bobo because Sims brings returning value to the table and Bobo doesn't. And we need a return man, and Sims, that's what he does. So wouldn't shock me if Sims and Bobo trade places here. Tight end, still have Noah Fant. Then you've got AJ Barner, you've got Elijah Arroyo, and then you've got Brady Russell on the bubble. Now, I don't think I need to spell this out. Noah Fant, very reasonable candidate to not be on this team when the season starts. Cut or trade, one or the other, saves a lot of money, clears the deck for guys like Barner and Arroyo to show what they can do. Fant is obviously not going to be here next year, so maybe they just say, hey, if he's not going to be here next year, why is he here this year when we're paying him a bunch of money that we could be saving? So if Fant goes, Barner's your starter, Arroyo's the backup, and Brady Russell is probably your third guy. Maybe we find another guy we like a little bit more than Brady Russell. We'll see. But that's your tight end stuff. And then we get to the offensive line. Left tackle is Charles Cross and Josh Jones. For the moment, it seems like we're listing Josh Jones as a tackle/guard. But for the purposes of this depth chart, I'm just going to put him at left tackle. Even though that may or may not be a position he can actually play, it does kind of feel like right now Josh Jones is our nominal backup to Cross, unless we feel like Gerald is ready. So put him there for now. I also have Mason Richmond on the bubble here. We did use a draft pick on him, but I don't think there's going to be room for him on the roster unless somebody like a Josh Jones or Gerald or Bradford or Lomia or Cable Do ends up looking so bad in rookie minicamp and the offseason in general that we just have to toss him off the ship. So, bubble for now. Left guard, Gray Zabel. We're going to try him at left guard at first, and we'll see what happens. Cable Do, the backup. I didn't initially think that Cable Do was likely to make the team, but I'm starting to think that he will because we don't really have another left guard we can utilize. So, Cable Do is your backup left guard for now. Center, Oluwatimi, with Jalen Sundle backing him up. I can't imagine things breaking any other way unless Christian Haynes bumps to center or Zabel bumps to center. So obviously they would just move over in the depth chart. They wouldn't be new additions to the depth chart. And then right guard, we go Christian Haynes for the moment. I'm not convinced it's a good idea to leave him there, but for the moment, we'll be there. Bradford backs him up, and then you've got Lomia lingering back here as a third stringer. And then right tackle, you've got Abraham Lucas starting and Mike Gerald backing him up, which I'm not thrilled about. The upshot is that Jones is a swing tackle. He can play both sides. So as long as you have Josh Jones on the team, he'll be able to kind of be your first man up on both sides, and Gerald is less likely to get on the field, which is good because I seriously doubt he'll be ready in 2025. And that's your offense. That's everything going on offensively on the depth chart. Moving over to the defense now. We've got... let's start with the nose tackle. Let's just start at the front and work our way back. Unfortunately, as of right now, Byron Murphy II is probably your starting nose tackle. I'm not too happy about it, but if you were to ask who's likely to play the most snaps, it would be him. Maybe Hankins technically starts the game, but Murphy will be the more important of the two by virtue of the fact that Hankins cannot play big snaps anymore because of how old he is. So Murphy's your starter, or at the very least your most important player there. Hankins is the backup. And then over at defensive tackle, you've got Leonard Williams, and then you've got Jaron Reed backing him up, pretty obvious. Riley Mills is the third string tackle, although it is worth noting, very good chance he starts the season on injured reserve. And if he does, that does open up another roster spot for you, but for now I'm going to go ahead and list him here. If he does start the season on injured reserve, that might pull in somebody like a Sims. That might pull in somebody like a Mike Morris, which would be an immediate replacement for him on the depth chart because Morris is a defensive tackle. So a few different things can happen there, but for now I'll say Riley Mills is on the roster. And once we get to the actual season, if he is starting on IR, then that gives us another spot to play with for a little bit. Edge rusher, we got Boye Mafe and Uchenna Nwosu starting with Derek Hall and DeMarcus Lawrence backing them up. Now, I don't know if that's literally how things are going to play out. I don't know who's literally going to be on the field for the first defensive snap of games, but I suspect that, assuming good health, these are going to be our two main snap count getters, and then Hall and Lawrence are going to be behind them. I don't have a fifth edge right now. I don't know who it would be. and I don't really think that we are in desperate need of one anyway. This is a pretty solid top four. I don't think you need a fifth edge, and even if you did, he probably wouldn't play very much, especially because you've got guys like Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy who can do a little bit of edge stuff. All right, so linebacker, we've got the Will and we've got the Mike. Will linebacker is going to be Tyrese Knight, and backing him up is going to be Drake Thomas. He's the only backup linebacker from the team last year that I can even remember doing anything defensively, and it was very little, but for the moment, he's still here. So Drake Thomas is your backup, Will. I also had Pat O'Connell on the bubble. I don't think he makes it, but maybe he does for special teams. He's a guy who maybe could get promoted if Mills starts the season on injured reserve. And then for Mike, I go Ernest Jones, and behind him I have the UDFA that a lot of people like, Woodard. A lot of people really like Woodard. There's some exciting stuff going on there with him. I think he has a chance to make the team, if only because our linebacker depth is very thin. So Woodard has a real chance to stick here, and I would be pretty excited for that. I think there's something there. I'll talk more about him in the future. Okay, cornerback is going to be outside corner, Reek Woolen and Josh Joby for the time being. I'm not convinced this is how it stays, but this would be my initial estimation. And then backing them up would be Zy Alexander and Nehemiah Pritchett, because there really isn't anybody else. We don't have Artie Burns anymore. DJ James is long gone. There's really not much else going on the roster right now that could fill in these backup spots. Nickel corner is, of course, Devin Witherspoon. Again, there's some flexibility here, which I'll get into in a second. For now, though, I think he is your nickel corner, and he slides outside in base. So just because he's listed as nickel doesn't mean he's not every bit as important as an outside corner. In fact, in many ways, he's more important. All right, so then we get to safety. Right now, I've got Julian Love and Kobe Bryant as your starting safeties. Then I've got Nick Emenwari and Jarek Reed as your backups. However, Emenwari does bring some interesting wrinkles to the table here. Emenwari is a guy who might be able to play the nickel. Emenwari is a guy who might be able to play outside corner. So there remains some unsettled potential here. Emenwari could take Joby's spot. Emenwari could take Witherspoon's nickel corner, and Witherspoon could just become a full-time outside corner, and Joby would be bumped to depth, which arguably, while I like Joby, he's arguably better off just being looked at as depth. He might not be good enough to be an every down starter, or, well, I shouldn't say every down starter, but a majority of the time starter. It depends on your perspective. I like Joby, but Emenwari certainly has far more talent than Joby does. So there is a chance that Emenwari finds his way on the field like that. He may also end up being the third safety on some snaps. And I also had AJ Finley on the bubble. I don't think he makes it, but he's another guy who I think will be one of the first guys up. If one of these guys falls through or starts the season injured, I think then Finley gets involved, potentially. And then free safety. And by the way, strong safety, free safety doesn't mean anything in this defense. I just put it there as labels. But both these safety spots are ubiquitous. It doesn't really matter which one's which. Kobe Bryant, and then, of course, Jarek Reed. And then our special teamers, Jason Myers, Michael Dixon, Chris Stoll. We know what's going on there. Not much to discuss. And that's 53. We have 53 roster spots filled with this battery of players, not counting the bubble guys, of course, because I'm saying they're on the bubble. So let me know what you guys think. This is the depth chart as I would imagine it to be right now. We're going to get a lot more information in the coming months. We're going to probably make some additions to the team. Like a lot of people expect the Seahawks to sign Shaq Griffin. If you sign Shaq Griffin, then he probably takes Pritchett's spot. He might take Zy Alexander's spot. He might be on the team instead of Jarek Reed. Jarek Reed might not make the team. He might start the season on IR because he really struggles to stay healthy. Maybe Shaq Griffin makes the initial roster instead of Riley Mills if Mills starts on the injured reserve. So a lot of guys are potentially in a weak spot in terms of roster security right now. So things are going to get mixed up. Once we sign Shaq Griffin, that'll be something I reconsider. of course, because if we sign Shaq Griffin, he's almost certainly going to make the team. But that's how I see it right now. Let me know what you think. See you guys later. Go Hawks.